guess welcome to after work conversations with Manic and the Jerk. Um, just getting off work. We just like to get together and have different conversations on what's going on and some things we can help people with. So, what you got on the agenda for us today?
Yeah, before I get into the topic, man, I'm gonna go ahead and stake a claim today.
What's that?
We're gonna be the flyest podcast in this YouTube space, man. So y'all stay in
Hey,
tune, man. We're gonna definitely be building onto the platform. But yeah, like Manic was saying, we just want to jump in here, after work, man. We get off and stuff and kind of just break down stuff, review stuff. So we're gonna be building on the platform and stuff. So we don't want to keep people too long, just be quick conversations and stuff. And we might end up doing lives based off of this stuff, but more to come on that. But yeah, man, I definitely got a good topic, man. So we definitely stay in tune to these like YouTube conversations and stuff. And I know we've been kind of talking about, breaking down like leadership in a relationship space, but kind of even break it down even more based on that. Like, okay, what is good leadership versus bad leadership? Because a lot of time people are mentioning like leadership, but it's like, what side are they really kind of explaining, when you hear these people? So let me pose this first question to you to kind of like, so we can start the conversation on.
okay.
So it's like, what do you consider bad leadership in a relationship?
Um, I think bad leadership, you know, in relationships or just in business. I mean, it's kind of the same. It's really failing to like inspire the people you're trying to lead, whether that's just your partner or you're trying to lead a team. So, um, just in a nutshell, like a high level, bad leadership is the inability to, inspire and empower the people around you.
Okay. Nah, just to kind of piggyback off of you, I definitely think it's like, when people have that bad leadership, a lot of times I think they're kind of lacking in areas. So, they start kind of embedding, like you were saying, like the opposite of like influence, it's like they kind of micromanage,
Oh yeah, for sure. That's
people, and they
definitely.
start kind of, it's based on like sometimes like their limitations and I'll say some of their flaws in their character that they might have and stuff like that. So instead of like we were talking about building up people, motivating them, it's like, they kind of make people feel small.
Yeah.
So they kind of like instead of drawing those people to them, they're pushing people away a lot of times. So like I like the example you mentioned as far as like business relationships are, a leader in a business.
Hmm.
When you get that bad leadership style, a lot of times those people are, it's like a rotating door, how those people jump off and they're like,
Oh
talking
yeah.
to other people who might be interested coming. They're like, hey, don't come over here. This so and so
Yeah.
works here. They got a bad leadership style. But
Yeah.
when you talk about relationships and the way that we're kind of hearing it in a lot of these conversations on YouTube and stuff like that, you kind of hear it a lot of these guys where they're embedding like fear. They're expressing those limitations when they're talking about like their significant other and stuff like that. Like, well, I don't want her to do this, go get a job because she might, run into somebody else. So I hear a lot of like that fear based, and instead of like building that their significant other up, and letting them kind of go out there and flourish too. A lot of
Hmm.
times it's like, hey, I want them tucked away at the house, doing basic chores and shit. Even if they might have a smart partner, it's like limiting that person to a very basic role just based on like their limitations and fears. So you kind of like witnessed that also.
Yeah. I guess going a little deeper. Bad leadership is everything that you just said. It's you mentioned the people micromanaging. You mentioned that like low morale. If people don't feel empowered or they don't feel like their voices are being heard, it's kind of hard to be a good leader. I mean, you can think you're a good leader, but if you're unable to effectively communicate the vision towards achieving the goals, then you're not going to be a good leader, despite how you personally feel about yourself. And you see that a lot of times with businesses that fail, relationships that fail. you have one person that believes that they're a good leader, and they're neglecting to actually listen to the person that they're trying to lead, or the team that they're trying to lead to achieve those goals. So uh going back to my original point, um leadership is really about empowering people to you know be on board with the vision that you've set, and reaching that ability to achieve those goals. So and just touching on what you had mentioned about um, some of these guys in these spaces um, taking the tactic of shaming, you know, women, or yeah, shaming women essentially, and to like having the mindset of, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Um, I mean, you said it. You said it. And I don't have to really regurgitate it. It's just like fear. Um, you you can be aware. You should be aware as a good leader, but if you're leading with fear, you're not leading. You're gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're not leading, because you can lead with fear, but you're not gonna be an effective leader if your foundation is fear. And it may not rear its ugly head immediately, but if you have that fearful mindset, it just gets exposed, you know, and it's just a matter of time before it does get exposed. And the person or team that you're trying to lead, will pick up on that. And you probably will run into that situation to where your partner or team that you're trying to lead will run into somebody who doesn't have that fearful mindset, and they're going to look at them like, man, this person's a better leader, because they're not leading from fear, they're leading from experience and awareness. So I do like what you said about a lot of people like to jump in particular spaces and declare themselves a leader, and really don't have the credentials to lead, because they can't effectively communicate. And communication is two ways. It's being able to articulate how you feel, or the direction, and also, more importantly, the ability to listen, because um, there's multiple paths to whatever journey you're getting to. You can go on a path where it's just you doing the majority of the work, or you can empower your team or your partner, and it can have like this uh, synergy to where you get there so much faster. And and it's a just a different process.
Yeah, no, that was definitely I like the breakdown and kind of just piggy like building up on what you're saying. It's just like a bad leader. A lot of times it stems from those insecurities and what I kind of mentioned before, like their own limitations. It's
Yeah.
like one of the things I do hear a lot, especially when people are talking about like I need to be the leader in a relationship, so I got to kind of pay for everything. And I know I gave quite a few people some pushback. I'm like, hey, you have to pay to be a leader. Like if you're paying to be a leader, it's like, man, you that's some mercenary type stuff. So it's like you really don't have leadership in that
Yeah.
instance. It's just like, man, you're really just kind of lying to yourself. So it's just like a lot of people, man, they think like, okay, if I suppress this person, tuck them away somewhere in the house and stuff like that, and they don't really interact, and like you were mentioning, they go out there and they see some like a better form of leadership, they won't leave and stuff like that. But it's kind of terrible in a certain though in those situations, because it's like you might have a very smart, wife that can go out there and, like you were saying, streamline the household and get you to that end goal faster, financial freedom
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But it's like that person's ego and that foolish pride will sit there and keep the whole household and their whole lineage, in a bad position just due to that. So yeah, and I like what you were saying. I just wanted to kind of hone in on that.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was about to say. I was gonna say something as far as, damn, I really forgot it.
Like, I got a question for you. So what would you consider like a trait for bad leadership? Some
uh,
characteristics or some traits you probably see with some individuals.
Manipulation. That's probably the biggest one. abusive behavior, micromanaging, the one that you kind of mentioned, and just having, the wrong mindset. And you mentioned on that or touched upon that, like the fearful mindset. Um,
We're
before
definitely
I
got to do
tackle,
like a fear
yeah, yeah,
based
yeah.
breakdown.
But the one thing that just came back to me, if your leadership is predicated on your financial, you know, uh,
Top of it.
power, like if you bought that shit, if you think that holding financial leverage over your partner is what determines or dictates your leadership, then you don't actually have leadership. You just have, an employee, or a servant, or however you want to call it. You have somebody who's under your financial umbrella, and following your vision because that's the dynamic and relationship that you've both established. But that's not leadership, you know, um, because if it's predicated on your financial leverage, then once that financial leverage shifts, you no longer have leadership. And I think that's where the fear comes for a lot of men who are insecure. They believe that if their women were to actually go out there and have the same financial resources, there would be no way for them to, have that power and control to dictate how the house moves. And, you know, uh, it's sad and it's really a shame that a grown man would be so fearful, and think that leadership is solely determined on the financial leverage. But
So you
you
saying they're
know,
tricks?
I'm just saying it's sad. The reality the reality is, no, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's tricking. I think it does lead to a trick mindset for sure. Um, but I think it's more of an insecurity, and it's like that fear-based tactic that, like, oh no, she can't, go out there in the workforce and make her own, because then, where's my value going to be added? And it's just like, or she's not going to listen to me anymore because she's going to have her own money. It's like, well, if you can't get your partner to listen to you solely based on the finances, then that person wouldn't. If everything was even, like, and that person will listen to you, hopefully you didn't marry that person. That's all I got to say on that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree because it's like they want to be like I because like I said, man, we kind of involved in a lot of these conversations. So it's like what I hear from a lot of guys, they want to be needed, you know,
Yeah.
resource base wise, because it's just like they feel that that gives them that leverage and stuff. So like when they're asking me about my situation, 50-50 and stuff like that, they're like, so does she make decisions? Do you still got leadership? I'm like, yeah, man, like that's not going to dictate because a lot of times, like providing and all that, you provide knowledge, you provide stability,
Yeah.
you provide direction. You don't have to lead with the wallet because it's like if you do allow people to excel and you embed, your mindset into them, like what a good leader should do, because it's like part of good leadership is mentorship,
Yeah.
guidance. So it's like when you let that person go out there and flourish, they're going to be respectful. They're going to have that awareness and understanding, like, hey, this person is very supportive of me. They're giving me this different type of knowledge. They could look at their peers, their other females, and see what kind of capacity they're in, and they're like, hey, I definitely appreciate the position that this person put me in. So they're going to give you a different type of situation, and they're not going to be self-centered, and they're going to pour into the household and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think a lot of times, yeah, that insecurity, man, it, like I said, overall it just ends up destroying the household. A lot of times these people's like spouses do end up, getting burnt out at home and stuff like that. Because you look a lot of like the divorce, statistics and the explanation for that. A lot of people say like, hey, I don't have that sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely ties into what you're saying, those insecurities.
Yeah. I got to give you some pushback on the part on the respect part, because nah, you can do a lot for somebody, and at the end of the day, they can still be disrespectful, and uh we might
Well,
have
yeah,
to do
that's if they lacked awareness, and that's why I
I
think
mean,
sometimes you gotta definitely find that person that has that sense of awareness. So they
yeah.
might not see it right now, but trust me, when people go out there and they experience life after they might lose something, they definitely gonna be like, damn, I had a great situation and stuff like that. So it might not
Yeah.
come at that time, but sometimes accountability is a little delayed.
Yeah.
Still got pushback. That was a kind of fly response. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah,
Nah.
I got. No, I think it's more.
Go
I
ahead, give
think
it to
it's
me. Let's go.
all right. I think it's more so with the gratitude, like rather than just awareness, because somebody can be aware of something and still be like disrespectful. So I think me personally, I would look for more gratitude rather than just having the awareness, because you know, I just and this might be anecdotal, but uh I've dealt with some really disrespectful people, and and teach his own. My tolerance for disrespect, is different from um, other people. I know yours is too, because outside of these YouTube streets, we know each other on a personal level, and you don't tolerate no disrespect. I will
Yes,
say
sir.
that.
Now, but that just comes with a good leadership because a lot of times people think like good leadership is sometimes spotting the right people to mentor. That's part of the element, and it's also like the capability of like just even when we're going to like business type arrangements. Like if you're in a supervisory role, so hey, sometimes you gotta let some personnel go. You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
like fire some people. So that's part of being a good leadership because it's like, hey, I'm not gonna let you drag the whole team down or the company or whatever. Especially if you look at yourself as an organization. Because it's like if you have a family unit, you still got a kid. It's like, hey, I'm not gonna let this person drag the whole lineage down because they're not getting it. So that's a part of even good leadership when you got the ability to walk away. But like the thing I say awareness, and I think sometimes I do get pushback on that because I definitely see what you're saying. You want somebody to have that gratitude and stuff like that, and I absolutely I would not tolerate. But I think awareness, what I'm was saying is it's kind of based on the other person, and it's like they got to kind of be aware of like, hey, I got a good guy that's truly like putting in that work. He's committed. He's got these features, and I can't take that for granted, kind of like what you're saying and stuff like that. So that's why I do preach awareness, and it's more or less for the other person in the relationship because it's like sometimes as humans, especially in I say United States, man, we just got so many. We're blinded by options. Whereas like sometimes we want to nitpick stuff because it's like, hey, you might want to jump out there and people are like, damn, I saw somebody that's attractive and I might want to partake in that. But it's like sometimes that awareness, that's what it's like, hey, nah, my person's, fly. They got their shit together. They're committed to the household. So that what prevents people from overstepping those boundaries, which you're kind of talking about, like, especially with like disrespect and lacking gratitude and stuff like that.
yeah,
So nah, I definitely like that though, man.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times people think like, man, leaving a situation, like, nah, that's good leadership. Spotting the right person, like the vetting process, that's all part of good leadership. Just like, companies, they're gonna want to be sourcing out good employees, the HR department. So it's just like, man, that's definitely ties into like the leadership. So what would you consider a good leadership style? Just real quick, because I know we touched on it somewhat.
Okay. Good leadership. Okay. Damn, I didn't even see that in the. Oh, it's in a different folder. Okay. Good leadership. I think it's when it's so easy to like define, but it's so difficult in the sense of like you want to hit all these points. But I think from a high level, good leadership is uh, creating a positive environment to thrive, for you to achieve the goals that you set, and having people or that person to be on board with those goals, and like really having the ability to understand not only where you're going but who you're taking with you. Like for example, in a relationship, you have to know who your partner is, and you kind of have to, with good leadership, you kind of have to evaluate, you know, yourself. You have to evaluate your partner. Figure out really what makes them tick, what motivates them. What's going to inspire them. What's going to like really create a positive culture for growth and achieving that that particular goal or goals that you have set out. So
So just kind of listening to you, you think, because I know you mentioned before effective communication. You think that's
yeah.
very important in that process?
Oh, absolutely. That's probably if I were to put like the number one thing, I would probably put effective communication. Actually, I would put it as number two. The number one thing is having the right direction, you know, and then number two is I got effective communication right under having a direction.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because it's like, man, when you're giving out that guidance and you don't got like clear, like you said, communication, and you can't communicate it the way it needs to be, it definitely could like lead to confusion and stuff like that. So a lot of times when people don't know how to execute, just even thinking about on the job, it's because you didn't break stuff down or you didn't explain it the right way. And then like what I said about mentorship, it's just like, that because that's a part of leadership. You can't really communicate it to people. Then a lot of times that's what people don't realize. Like they have breakdowns, and whether it's business or even in a relationship and stuff like that. So it's like, sometimes you gotta, switch your tone up. You gotta talk to people different ways. Even like when you're talking to your kids, man, you might have two kids, but it's like I gotta one kid I could be a little more with the tough love, and the other one I gotta like switch it up a little bit, just to make sure that the point comes across and stuff. So yeah, definitely. So the last question before we go ahead and get up out of here, I'm gonna. How would you prevent yourself from developing bad leadership traits?
Uh, that's a tricky question. Honestly, I think that's kind of hard. Um, I don't really have like a uh, one size kind of fits all approach. I would just give advice as far as somebody who's in a leadership position or looking to be in a leadership position. Um, I would say kind of seek the mentorship or study research a leader that you aspire to be similar to. And we have the internet nowadays, so there's plenty there's a plethora of options and leadership styles that you can like look into and research into. So um, one of the things that is crucial for becoming a leader is understanding how to follow. Um, so it's a weird dynamic. Um, I mean, if you go the traditional route, you kind of follow under somebody. That's where that mentorship is kind of like in the same realm of like coaching. Um, you can build your leadership skills through that way, through somebody who's an established leader, and they can kind of like help you get to leadership faster. Or uh, you can humble yourself and understand when you need to take a step back from leadership and let somebody control the reins for a second. And that goes to say with business, that goes to say with your personal relationships. And I'll just give you an example in business. If eh, I wish I had a better analogy. I didn't even think about this, but if you have if you are in the process of um, putting a lock or building a vault, right, for a bank, you know, you are in charge. You are the project manager for this particular project. You are the leader of this project. You have the schematics, you have the requirement, you've done your market research, you understand, what it takes, how many people you need to hire to get the job done. So you are the leader. Um, you guide the vision into getting to that end goal of completing the vault for that particular bank. Um, However, the locksmith, You know, if during the process the locksmith notices, hey, I know the requirement was set like this, but if you add this type of lock, you know, it'll actually be more cost effective and it's actually stronger. And, the capabilities, it meets all the requirements and more. So you can sit up there and say, you know what? No, I'm the leader. I decided that this was the lock that we're going to do. This was the schematics. I mean, I might be getting the words wrong, but this is what we need. Or you can understand that, leadership doesn't necessarily mean making all the decisions and calling every single shot, because that comes into the territory of like micromanaging. You can release the reins and allow that, locksmith, and I might have the job title wrong, but you might, allow that locksmith to take the lead on redefining the requirement and, adding like the change order to, make the lock, more effective for, what it's supposed to do. So that's a time, and it might not just be one decision. It might be, hey, now I need to let this subject matter expert, the locksmith, lead in the meetings, because now he's going to be telling the engineers and everybody who's involved, hey, we're building a lock like this now. We're going to need this. We're going to need that. And that may require you to step out of your leadership role, and instead of directing people, to actually be one of the people that needs to be directed. He might need to tell you, hey, go back to the CEO or go back to the person in charge of, or who's paying for this lock, and let them know that, this lock is not, the most, is not the best option. And, I've seen leaders say, you know what? No, I'm just going to give them exactly what they want. And this is how it's going to be. But you also have other leaders, and I think better leaders, who will take their own ego outside. They'll take their pride and drop it and say, you know what? I want to deliver the best product for this project. And they'll take that step back and, follow the lead of, that subject matter expert. Um, and it goes the same way in a relationship. And it can be as simple as, for me, or not just me, as a man, um, typically how these gender roles are kind of set up through society. The man takes the lead. The man makes all the decisions. But what if uh, the woman that you have is very capable and she's good with her finances and she has, better budgeting skills? You might need to you might need to take a step back and let her, manage or take control over certain things, because if the ultimate goal is to move the household as far as possible, there's going to be areas where, she may be better suited and better fit to take the lead. And, being a leader is first and foremost understanding, where you want to be, and then making the necessary steps and moves to get there. And sometimes that move is you taking a step back as the leader and allowing your team or your partner to, take charge on certain things.
Yeah, no, I like the analogy, man, because like you said, your family should be like a business, and a lot of times, why people ain't, getting to them next tiers, and I say like classes are moving up, is because they're not efficient. So, like you said, even like an executive, or I'm, in a leadership role, it's like I'm not going to be involved in every decision making. I can't. That wouldn't even be efficient. So a lot of times when you see bad leaders, they're in the weeds of everything, and they start missing like projects, and like you were saying, like we call it scope creep. When they have cost overruns on projects and stuff because they don't want to take that input from anybody else. So yeah, now if you're smart, you're gonna put people in the right position. That frees you up to go, like you were saying, using your example of the budget. And if they got that under control and that's done, now you can go learn how to invest. So now you're bringing a whole nother skill set to your family. Or you're tackling, hey, I'm going to go and get in real estate since you got this down there. So now, we're bringing another source of income in there. So that's why a lot of times, like when I'm hearing these conversations, I'm trying to tell people, like, do you really want to make every decision? That's not efficiency. So it's like you guys are all they're just mentioning bad leadership, and they're wondering why, like, man, we can't get nothing. You know, that's where they start going into the like community topics and stuff like that, like systematic oppression and stuff. And it's just like, no, it's just like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And now that you're not efficient and you're not kind of getting better results because of, like you said, your limited way of thinking, you know, you're kind of looking at excuses now. Whereas, like, if you truly had that good leadership and you were putting people in the right position and you freed up some of your time and you took that, you know, same time and used it in better areas, then it's like, man, then, you know, your family will start excelling. But great example. So I just wanted to touch on how do you prevent yourself a little bit. So I think one of the ways you prevent yourself is definitely, man, you got to seek wisdom. And it's just like you use the example of like mentoring, which is definitely true, but it's just like, you know, reading self-improvement books. You know, also, you know, I tell people all the time, somebody was asking me, I was in a barber shop, you know, I got to go get my hair cut, but I got to get back in there. You know, they're asking me like, how'd you kind of get in your situation? And what's the best way of like learning? And I was like, hey, observation. You know, I always looked at like good examples of something. And, you know, I used to study people's mindsets and stuff like that, how they maneuver, the time management and stuff like that. So you start kind of looking at those things and then you process that information and implement it and execute it. You know, it's going to put you in a better state. Because like you said, it's like, hey, if somebody's already got the blueprint for something, I don't need to go and try to reinvent some stuff. I might tweak it a little bit to fit my style a little bit, but it just streamlines your life and stuff like that. So, definitely a great conversation, man. I like what you were saying, man, and it's definitely was needed. You know, hearing some of these conversations about leadership, I'm like, damn, what are they leading? Like military platoons out here or something?
Yeah.
So, any like parting words or something?
Nah, other than check out our videos. This is the after work conversations. Uh, you know, just finding solutions to, you know, common problems that, you know, just kind of see just on the internet, people answering questions or people kind of dropping in my DMs like, hey, can you cover leadership or, you know, cover this topic? So I always send them to you and filter them out. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's one thing, like you said, it's like if y'all want us to cover some stuff, and you know, we're still trying to debate because we are kind of busy at the jobs and stuff like that. So it's just like we're thinking about doing some lives where people we're gonna get. So if y'all got some ideas and some topics y'all want us to like cover down on it, and definitely like hit the DMs up, and we'll sort them out and try to do these videos. But yeah, we're trying to do these in limited capacity, man, because we're busy. That busy time of the year.
But appreciate y'all. Hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time.
Hit that cash app too.